제 전부 저도 능미장 전에 모는 전부가 되다 바가로 당간 전도 실물도 돈바 특제 잔라 기점자라는 전월 제니 정금서 저월들 기션로 연락 내면 분조조라 소란 공제 도반 보러 신제로 공제 도반 보러 신제로 공제 도반 보러 신제로
The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see it, hear it, receive it, and uphold it. I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings, let us generate the Supreme Bodhicitta.
Jarkim danda, Alladan, Kardan, Yangardan, Toriandan, Metogdan, Dirpusogim, Chopin Berjan. Chopin Berjan, Yana, Jan Chopin Berjan, Source. Yana, Jan Marchika, Mambola, Tertrim Chopin Berberkerna. Tsendin Jikten Dogam. Yana Shimin Jikten Nams, Landry, La Sopa, Gerton, Mambo, Nim Sand, Stagde, Ganzak de Chonrishedo, Ganzak de Shawangambar, Nave Tubrian, Mangerna, Musiti, Togden, Bapar, Mujo, so Gunda Yamba, Maon Jikten Na, Mumaron Wadan, Hamaron Wadan, Jemaron Watak, Riki Vagam, Riki, Mokan, Chanchus and Wasai, Yambur, Kurzilla, Kiber Shepada. Chopin Barvadam, Tornip Shepadam, Chamsar Nam Tona, De Latte, Gandun Dut, Nipju Shepadam, Yondan Dam, Panyon, Mepper Grande Padam, Chabgut Shepadam, Skoner Mopadam, Yana Zanlas Mot of Jigbadam, Tana, Skurvan, De Bi, Sem, Skajig Mazam, Kirab Jigbate, Dogma, Karav, Zambu, Sangi, Stone Saxi, Stone Saxi, Ningan Dejan, Detak. Skurapta bir narmengi, Karastunga Varta Taton, Yaram Narmeter, Dunguriamsum, Yon Gero. Tele Tarni Yedakanes of Karastunga Varta, Dunguriamsum, Yon Gero. Tele Tarni Shurtunganes of Karastunga Varta, Dunguriamsum, Yon Gero. Slarum me listen to Kian, Gorvada, Rumambada, Wombo Matsavada, Stag the Lingam, Guntigi, Semdit Jamber and Jerajan, Maran or Slarian, Ansungones, Kiver and Gero. Tinakanda Yamba, Shanchus and Wasai, Yambur, Kuzilam, Chopper Shipper, Nanar Grande, Panatir, Narman Yansam Yona, Loberta, Dilla Kiene, Lober Shopi, Remember Mbana Telejan Mumagoso, Kanda Yamba, Maun and Jitin Namser, Kibagam, Vedmid, Napa Kanji, Vedmid, Napa Kanji, Yinram, Buvarta. Marcel Hone, Chivagan, Matap, Zumba, Mani, Chefshak Turmiti, Ngane, Lodang, Davatan, Germanbur, Malamdaya, Jerdunji, Germanbur, or Malamdayan, Jerdunji and Sevatan, Kim Niemjer, Shore Namjin Sevatan, Lamchang Amber Devatan, Jerdun Taka, Nyarnun, Shipatan, Hanjir Namdam Nyamdan, Chambi, Noala, Sobe, Yang Zerne, Napate Taka Liboyan, Ritchang, Gambur, Gerte, Marsane, Sim Dever, Zolok. Mais permettez-moi no, Tetak le Lamian Tabar Shanji per Mafshon, Arthur Girdixiang, Nichten Mafshoni, Tsin Dorian Matab, Natakian Mani by Yunmut, Testana, Timbapumo, Tetak, Tir, Namjik, Jepa, Namjik, Jid Mani Bay, you know, Namjik, Jid Mani Bay, you know. Tela Sanji dans Chanchu San Hua Namjir, Kurzikim, Dan, Jachim, Boom, Dordin, Dan Yadlan, Chipla Bagam. Yana Napati, Ti Yetogun, Murzedan, Kudan, Ramboche. Ravadan, Kankim, Lane, Napati, Mdunda, Jachimbu, Kakimo, Dakakimo, Jishave, Napakanga Cheta. Murzer Namaspande, Alavam Lam Chopin Barvagam, Sanjay Dam Shanchips and Richkos of Jambagam, Chutendam, Gumbab Jambat, Marmi, Rarvatan, Gindan La Surtun, Janvala, Soba Shepayan, Zilan, some diverter, maybe Napakangan, Tujan, Goran, Gero. Yana napa di wig chatne lisim susur jar kerne jak chikum jak nisam jak sam jak jeni dengi varta jachim bum durden da neflagna kanz shimpu matagdir digba chimbo ne zontem same parni varti digba nam gyayong sa taron gero kanzig de de qestiar nam sa tsirip jamberin gene riggi mo kangam durden da nyog ngusup jiba janlam jaram jigba da Shangchib sen hui ndarkib shiba rimo jiba dang janlan ndarkib shidib jigba dang rimo mjirib jigba te taglaf tenir nambar membim jevenir gya chimbo tobarin jevrar mum ogoso. Dina kanda yang ba ganzig ganjikim dordin da nyuk loba dang tanar gajik zamlam dordin da nyuk tornyuk shiba gurtib shibirim tongna kyokiv gya tab gyartong tamalaf tenne ganzig te taqib sumbis semir dogdim mgjik birib shawu. Tertrishina tata dang maung bar yang yondanji tsog gyartong shiab chiggyab samgimi jiba tobaran jiru. Ganda yang ba maung jiktenji semchim nar milim nit yerwa na la dang zhe dang zik nambar na tsuk barti shindir kyovir namba dang Merning dombir namba dang, dingarvir namba dang, wugan jimbir namba dang, changchak namba sogji zigdagum tongna. Dedag kiwak chikam, kiwak chigam, kiwak chigdang, kiwak chidang, kiwak gyadang, kiwak tong namsa, shungu rangranga pama dang, pomo manchang zarda la sobe nimjir nam, ngansung gonesir nongne taryo nirkibme ba ranga sharikh chigbim jiryo, nyen navlar kyabdang kyobam gondang khonye dang tsorjang. Sunumji tsuklabtene ngansung tedagle yonsa tarvi cheta tertir nawa yano. Ganda yangba kyuki zimchir jirtoblabtene semjin ganjika sangyedam shanjib sangwish kuzigam dan semch tsikchik bimdordo ranga khlugba gamag janda khlugdub chigne tsarg simmam tsarv dan yonsir zugbana semjin tedag ngansung ganene tarvan gero. Tenebzon rmanam ngamba dang nyit yerba tisa yang semjin tedag tandir nawar mangero. Ganda yangba maung jikten namsi ganzaga rigman barte janpo dang, janmo dang. Janmo la soba rangwang mepa mar namla rangranga tserwar ngami le yambar shine shikbar ndo patagna nyanab danji rangla simr tsekchik be shangchib sanwa sayi nyambur kagzig lap tabagam. Shikm tsarwagam shangchib sanwa tsan vjodne chagchik gangwa na Dedak legir nambar mamba zanir kiwar tongchik chipchik vardı. Rtagdı ring towa shartagdı kiwarin gerjan. Ngansung neksimji rdungwar mnyongwar mengiru. 下面我们讲那个
Now let us begin our class.
什么讲那个 地藏经 就是地藏经
Our class on Ksitigarbha Sutra. Right now we're on the 6th chapter.
讲到那个如来的这个赞叹
We're talking about the praises from the Tathagatas to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. This time, the teaching of Ksitigarbha Sutra in fact derived from some very special conditions and causes, because we have encountered so much calamities as well as sickness since the beginning of the year. Therefore, I translated this sutra from Chinese into Tibetan, and I think by supplicating to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and knowing his great merit would be very necessary for all of us. This time we don't really have lots of audience because we don't have live broadcasting. I think it's good as well because noticing that the minority of people who attend this class were actually the smaller group compared to what we had before. They're listening to this class very attentively with great focus. They did not give up. Just as it is stated in the dances and songs from the Lotus Garden, it says that when the honeybees are enjoying the flowers, all of a sudden there's dark clouds approaching, and all of a sudden started downpour. And then after that heavy rain, there are bees that's still alive, and there are the ones would probably died or probably already died. So in our world, impermanence definitely would occur. Just like this time, the COVID-19 is like the thunderstorm. But after the thunderstorm, we're still alive. Anyhow, we're still learning. Therefore, we should get a reward. What reward? You're asking? That reward is I'm still giving you teachings on Ksitigarbha Sutra. This is the biggest reward that I can give you. And I think it's really the best kind of reward for all of you. When we're listening to the sutras, this kind of time, this kind of opportunity is precious, because look at us. We don't really know how long we'll be able to live. We don't really know what's going to happen, because this world is so impermanent. Even if there's no grave changes, but there are other aspects that could change, such as faith and our health and all different aspects. Last year, at the same time, many people were listening to the Dharma teachings with great joy, but this year, many of them has already passed away. And next year, can we guarantee we're going to be the same? In fact, we can't. We don't really know if, as the speaker, if I'm going to still be here, or as a listener, you're still going to be here. So as Mahayana practitioners, it's really important for us to pay attention, or it's really important to be aware of impermanence and keep impermanence to our hearts. And from the view of impermanence, we will be able to step onto the path of the genuine Dharma, and we will be able to diligently practice throughout the whole way and not fall off the correct path. So when you're listening to the Dharma teachings, do not view it as some mundane, ordinary training, some kind of classes on math and physics and so on. We're talking about how human life is difficult to attain, and it's difficult to listen to the Dharma, and especially it's difficult to encounter a good teacher. So with these kind of causes and conditions that's already gathered by all of us, and this kind of causes and conditions won't be permanent. Therefore, even for one class, if you have this opportunity to listen to one class, you should pay attention. You should be very attentive to listen to these classes. Therefore, I really think we should use the mind of we should have the mind of joyfulness, the mind of respect and diligence to listen to the Dharma. In fact, there are people nowadays who want to listen, who doesn't really want to listen to the class. They feel that they don't want to miss out because they have this herd mentality. On the other hand, they don't really want to listen to the class. They'd rather want to go to the cafe and have a cup of coffee or look at the moon outside. Simply put, they don't really enjoy the time of listening to the teaching. But then I think we should really contemplate upon these special causes and conditions that we gather to have the abilities to listen to the teaching. I know that nowadays we have these classes recorded, but I'm not so sure if these classes are going to be heard later on either. So anyhow, I'm very grateful for all of you who are listening to my class. Even if there's one person listening to my teaching, I am really grateful of that. Because of you, I have the opportunity to give the teachings. So let's now continue with the teaching on the sutra. Yesterday we've talked about how if there are women who does not like the form, the female form, or think their forms are ugly or weak or full of sickness, then through supplication to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, they can resolve these kind of suffering. Additionally, Samanta Vipula, there may be virtuous men or women who pay respect to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva by performing sacred ritual dances, playing sacred ritual music, singing praises, and making offerings of flowers and incense. If they can persuade others, even one person, to do so, likewise as well, be it one or many, even if it's just one person, then they will be protected daily by hundreds of devas and virtuous ghosts in their present and future lives. Just as when we have the cloud offering Dharma assemblies, when we practice the 7 branch offerings, there's this chanting that we would practice at the beginning, that is the offering chant, and usually we would play some music. But there are people who would play pop music with fast rhythm. So sometimes we would practice really diligently on the King of Aspiration, and then the people at the back would be playing pop music. Maybe it's because they really like that kind of music. That's why they played it. And of course, it's wonderful that you can offer the music that you like. Sometimes we hear really odd music that doesn't really fit to the scene of Dharma assemblies, such as rock and roll and such as pop music, and sometimes those political songs and so on. But as long as you like it, I think that's really wonderful. Every time during the Dharma assemblies, we would decorate the shrine hall with incense, flowers, lamps, and everything, and that is very much fitting to the hidden meaning of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. The other day, a practitioner told me that he didn't really understand why Pontsuk Rinpoche would specifically set up a Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Dharma assembly. And back at that time, when we practice the 7 branch offering, we didn't really have lots of decorations or flowers and incense. We didn't really have too much of those. And in lots of monasteries, they don't play music. Do they do that now? Old music? What do you mean by old music? There are many types of music. In fact, now when I look back, I started to understand the meanings, the hidden meanings and instructions from Pontsuk Rinpoche. I remember at the beginning of Larungar's chanting book, we didn't really have the multiplication mantra at the beginning. We started right away from 8 auspiciousness. Also, when we practice 7 branch offering, we didn't really play music at all either. Sometimes there's no 5 offerings either. And then Pontsuk Rinpoche required us to make the 5 offerings when we practice the King of Aspiration, and in such a way the merit would be great. We don't play music nowadays, do we? I think when we do that, when we chant that, you can play some music that you really enjoy. What music would you like? Amitabha mantra.
然后就是哪怕是对全一个人啊。
And then it says that even if that person could encourage others, even one person to make offering as well, then that kind of merit would ripen in this present life or in the future lives. The protection will also, they will be protected daily by hundreds of devas and virtuous ghosts. So people would be prevented from unfortunate occurrence and events from reaching their earshot, much less suffer any misfortunes themselves. All kinds of misfortunes from earth, fire, water, and war, and all these kind of misfortunes, they won't happen to you at all. So in the cloud offering Dharma assembly or during your daily offerings and your daily practice, this is quite important to do those on a daily basis. We don't necessarily have the opportunity to practice along with the whole Sangha, but we can uptake the chanting from the chanting book, the before and after class chanting as our daily chanting. This is quite important. Recently, in Larungar, we made this copy of the Tibetan version of a chanting book. For those of people who understand Tibetans, you can get this booklet. For those of you who don't really know Tibetan language, you could also get it, and you can use it as an object of making offering too. So even if you don't have the opportunity to chant with, or you don't really have opportunities to chant with others online, then at least you can chant by yourself. You can chant it with a tune. You can chant it with a tune that you really enjoy, and then make that as an offering to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I pretended to have a bad voice. I actually have a really melodious voice, but I pretended I have a bad voice. Anyhow, these kind of people who make offerings and chant, then they will be protected daily by hundreds of devas and virtuous ghosts. Over here, the virtuous ghosts can be understood as protectors. On one hand, the protectors can be the four Devarajas. They have the peaceful appearance. They are the celestial beings, such as the four Devarajas. They've already made the vow in front of the Buddha to protect the Buddha Dharma. And there are another group of protectors, especially in Tibetan Buddhism tradition. There are the protectors who would appear in wrathful forms, such as the 12 mammals, and Rahula, and Denjinla, Arjuna. All of these kind of protectors, as well as protectors, the protectors in Mantrayana, in the Tantrayana tradition. Great masters such as Padmasambhava, they subdued lots of those yakshas and rakshas while they were propagating the Dharma. And these kind of beings, were making difficulties or creating lots of obstacles in the progress of the great masters propagating the Dharma. And then after they were subdued, they made the promise of not harming the Dharma. Rather, they would protect the Dharma and the Sangha and the Buddha. So after made such promise, but their appearance are still the same as how they used to be. And in fact, that is why sometimes we would make an offering of liquor to them, because all of a sudden it's hard to, because it is hard to ask them to become a vegetarian all of a sudden. Though we are vegetarians ourselves, but the Guru Rinpoche allowed us to make offering of liquor to these protectors, because some of those protectors, they are rather quite wrathful and quite coarse or quite wrathful in their appearance. Just like there are people who like liquor and who like drinking and eating meat, and they're not necessarily all very tamed. Anyhow, these kind of protectors would protect you day and night. Therefore, it is quite important to chant the protectors' chant and practice and make offerings to them. And when you practice on the protectors' teaching, protectors' chantings and practices, and if you have a pure mind, you will be protected by the protectors, and then your strength will be different than others. According to the two codes of conduct, it says that if one were to be protected by the protectors, then even by that one person's strength, that person's strength can be compared to the strength of thousands of others. So it means that if a person is protected by the protectors, then that person's strength would win over the strength of thousands of others. That is why we can see there are people who have more strength or who can create more influence with their speech, and they can do more things than even just by one person by himself. He can do more than thousands of others. That is because the protectors supporting them, and the protectors are protecting them. And this is quite important, because without the protections from the protectors, then in this dark age, full of five defilements, with all kinds of obstacles coming from human beings and non-human beings, we will encounter lots of difficulties. Therefore, in our daily life, we have to practice the Dharma protectors. For the past 30 years in the Vajra subduing continent, that is over here in Larangar, we've been non-interruptedly making offerings to the protectors. Also, I would like to make a quick note. I heard that some people told me that there are people who should not attend the Dharma, the Dharma protector offering ceremonies or rituals. Some said that people who had abortions and so on should not attend these rituals. And I have never really heard of that ever. I'm not sure where you've heard about that. There are different myths that's going around. It could be because of some conservative saying from a long time time ago from some people from a long time ago. But when Poso Rinpoche was still with us, he had never said that so-and-so cannot practice Dharma protectors, cannot chant the Dharma protectors chantings. I don't think that's I don't think some of the rules nowadays are necessary, because Dharma protectors are also compassionate. Yes, abortion is definitely a wrongdoing. It is the same as killing. But I've never heard that the kind of people who have done such wrong deed should not attend the ritual of making offering to the Dharma protectors. I've been here for so many years, but I have never heard of that. I have no idea who started this myth. And after a while, after a short period, it will be our ritual, our annual ritual to make offering to the Dharma protectors over here in Larungar. And we would chant it over here in the shrine hall. And then on the second day, we would go to the peaks of the mountains and make offerings. But we have to make it in a peaceful way. If you don't have other places that's more convenient for you to make offerings, then just make some simple offerings. For example, when I go out and teach, I usually take my cup of offering cup to the Dharma protectors, and sometimes it's not easy for me or not so convenient for me to make offerings to the Dharma protectors. But usually, whatever tea I drink, I would make offering of this tea. This is rather more convenient for me, especially in the cities. I think sometimes making offering of liquor is not so convenient. Then I would really encourage you to make offering in this convenient way. Also, I encourage you to make offering to the Dharma protectors on the 26th of June in the Tibetan calendar, and this is going to be very good for you, especially people who lived in Larungar before or who had studied over here before. And then wherever you go, wherever you are, you can make offerings in such a way. Lots of great masters from the past, whenever they travel to Tibet, or after they traveled to Tibet and studied, and then they would go back to their hometown and teach. Wherever and whichever monastery they would go back, they would continue to make offering to their Dharma protectors. This is really a commitment that you take. Nowadays, I really feel people are very they're not very sturdy. They would get to know one person and then get to know another person and take this friend and take another friend the second day. And they would do one thing today, do another thing tomorrow, and then completely forget about the things that they've committed to. This is a sign of the non-sturdiness of the mind, the fickleness of the mind. So over here it says that these kind of people would receive the merit of being protected by the protectors, and they don't even hear any wrongdoings through their ears. And that leads me to a story of Master Hongyi. When Master Hongyi was still a lay practitioner, he really had lots of faith towards Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, and they made lots of offerings to him. After he got ordained, wherever he goes, he would also make offering to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Once he went to this monastery located in Zhejiang, and in that monastery, there were not many people in there, just one old monk and a few others. In total, there were about 5. Master Hongyi stayed over there, and he would make offering to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva before he goes to bed. And then he fell asleep quite deeply after. And halfway through his sleep, he woke up and he heard some footsteps. He also heard the sound of voice of the old monk. The old monk was rather quite ill, but he thought he wasn't so sure what happened. And then he fell asleep again. On the second morning, when he woke up, he saw that the whole monastery was completely chaotic, and he asked what happened. And the group of Sangha said that, wow, you were really lucky. There was a group of bandits who break into the monastery, and they had all kinds of weapons, and they rid off the properties of the monastery. And then this group of bandits forced the old monk, who was really sick at that time, to give up all the properties. So the old monk gave $200 at that time. Was that a lot back then? Do you know? So 200. And the bandits were still not satisfied with the $200. They broke open all the doors in the monastery and took away everything, including the clothing of the monastics. Everything that they can take with them, they took with them, and then burned down everything. There was only the room of Master Hongyi. They kept on knocking the door, but they couldn't open it. They couldn't open the window either. They kept on trying to open the door, but didn't succeed. I guess Master Hongyi was really deep in his sleep. At that time, it was almost dawn, and the bandits were afraid to be found out, so they left. And then Master Hongyi, later on, when he was given teachings on Ksitigarbha Sutra, he talked about how the blessings of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva were inconceivable. So this is definitely not some urban myth. It was something happened to Master Hongyi himself. When he was giving the teaching of Ksitigarbha Sutra, he introduced the 28 kinds of merits of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, and then he told his personal story. So for the kind of people who make offering and encourage others to make offerings, then they will be prevented from unfortunate occurrence from reaching their earshot, much less suffer any misfortune themselves. This is quite a rare story, quite a marvelous story, isn't it? Master Hongyi didn't even hear the knocking of the doors. Moreover, the Buddha continued to say, Samantavipula, after seeing virtuous men or women paying respect, homage, or making offering to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, there may be evil men, demons, or ghosts who slander or ridicule these acts as having no merits or benefits. So some of the virtuous men or women, some of them may be paying respect or homage or making offerings to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, but the evil ones, such as evil men, demons, or ghosts, they would slander or ridicule these kind of actions.
他通过安地你就是对这个加持这个人的心，就是然后呢就是让他
And
体会吧，就是可能是这
sometimes
样的，就是那个三男子三女
it
人
may
的话，
be
他不一定看得到
the
那个恶神和恶鬼，看不
demons
就不
or
满足不一定
evil
的
spirits
但是 像人
would
的话呢，就是可能他就有
who
些
would
人
use
做
their
善事的时候
influence
马上
up
就
on
会
human
产生嫉妒
beings,
心，
and
就是让
then
对进行
the
一些
human
他诽
beings
谤
would
然后
slander
呢就
or
是诽谤什么
ridicule
呢？就是
those
帮
ones
这个
who
提到地藏菩萨的
are
这个
creating
功德呢，
virtuous
就没有什么意义
deeds
啊，就是
through
他没
paying
有什么利
respects
益啊
and
等等。
homage
或者的话呢，就是
to
他这个
Ksitigarbha
无处就有
Bodhisattva.
这个慈
Anyhow,
善，就是他
it
非常
may
讥
not
笑
be in
这
a
种
form that
看
you
笑
see
或者
demons
是
or
特别
ghosts.
就是看不起的这样的这种这个
And then
表情啊，就是对
if
变笑变。以前那个很多人
these
这
kind
个
of
对有些人的行为呢
people under
就不
the
满嘛，
the
就是说
influence
啊
of
这个人
evil
太愚
demons
痴
or
了，就
ghosts
是太
or
可耻
the
了，
evil
太
man,
笨了，
they
等等，就是
would be
以这种方
slandering
式来
or
就是笑。
ridicule
或者呢
the
就是有
actions.
被
They may
有背后呢就是对
openly
他进行
display
这个诽
their
谤啊，就是去
insolence
进
by
行各种，
laughing at them
或
or
者呢就是
speaking
他
ill
全
of
就
them
是一
behind
个
those
人就是
virtuous
共会
people's
啊，就是
back.
全一个人就是
They
诽
may
谤
have
啊，就是让他
persuaded
这个
others,
就什
be
么
it
封闭呢
one
啊，
or
就这样
many,
的。或者呢
to
就是他全就
slander
是
or
一个
ridicule
人就
those
是全
virtuous
全
people
这
as
个
well.
他共同诽谤，或者是一个人会这样，或者呢就是
Sometimes
很
it
多
may
人
be that
来自
they
呢
would persuade
就
other
是一
people,
参了就是参
one
圣
or
那个
many,
机会的人呐，
and
就是或者
then
就是以参了间参圣那个机会的心也可以，或者
affect
说
them
是
in the
意
way
念当
to
中，就以参了
slander
间当中呢
and
这个生机
ridicule
会的这
those
种心啊，
virtuous
那么
people
这
as
个
well.
大家
They
知
may
道吧，
even
就是这个
only
人
have
际关
just
系
one
是
thought of
就是
slander
他
or
们的这个
ridicule.
人关系，因为这些什么恶人和恶人的话，看待有些人
The
的时候呢，
virtuous
他们
beings,
不甘心，
the
就是然后呢
evil
就
beings,
开始进行诽谤，
sometimes
然后
they
他
don't
不单
feel
是自
very
己诽
happy
谤，
when
还
they
要就是
see
对着一
the
些人
people
啊，就是一
practicing
个人、两个
virtue.
人、10个
And
人、
not
8个人，甚
only
至可能通过
they
什
do
么网
not
络啊、文
like
字
to
啊，
see
各种
them
方式啊，就是开始
practicing
那个
virtue. They
机会
would
啊，机会。
group
那么这样
group
的话呢，就
others
是那么这
and
些人是什么样的？就是
slander them
如
or
实之人呢，就是
ridicule
前
them
途啊，就
or
先界前
harm
途这个
them
灭
in
度的
various
话呢，
ways.
那么他们的这个诽谤的这个过报呢，就是人在
Especially
这个
nowadays,
还是
when we have
这个
internet,
大体
there's
当
lots
中
of those
该
kind
说
of
呢，这个
internet
极大
bullying
的
as
这个
well.
罪过啊，
As a
就是特
karmic
别的
retribution for
这
these
种这个可
acts
怜吧
of
啊，就是你
slander
看
or
啊，
ridicule,
这个如
these
果在一
evil
个佛
beings
面
shall
前，
fall
如果
into
诽谤这个
Avicii
地
hell.
藏菩萨的话呢，这
So
个有
if
可能
one
的，就是我
person
们
were
幸好是我
to
们还是这
ridicule or
个没有
slander
遇
the
到
ones
这个什
who
么这个恶知识，不然如果
those
遇到恶知识，就是这
those
个你
virtuous
的老
ones,
师呢，
then
就
they
是
would
特
have
别
fallen
就是派
into
赐这个地
Avicii
藏法
hell.
门的话呢，
If
很
your
有可能就
teacher
是从小的时候就是看不惯
repel
这个地藏法门，有
Ksitigarbha
这个。如果你
Bodhisattva,
这样的话呢，那这个人
then
也好，就
the
是他
group of
住持的这些人的
students
话呢，都会
would
堕落。那
probably
么他
also
呢，就是在这
ridicule
个一个大界当中啊，就是
Ksitigarbha
我们这个
Bodhisattva.
先界
So
全部
we're
全
very
部都已经灭
fortunate
度
that
了，
we
但是
didn't
这个众
encounter
生呢，
any
就
of
是仍
those
然在那个阿鼻地狱当中
evil
啊，一直
friends
不干
or
出
bad friends.
就干出这个无量的这个过报。那么这个
And
就是
these
所
kind
有
of
的这个
people
先
would
界前后
lead
的这个时
others
间过完了以后呢，就是他就干出这个
or
恶
they
的
themselves
这个
would
过
fall
报，也
into
是在一个
Avicii
大
hell.
界
They
当
shall
中。
remain
那
there
这
to
个
suffer
就是
for
经
their
过过
severe
了以后的
offense
话呢，就是
even
在这个出
after
生当中呢，就是干出这个功德。
Bhadra
那么
Kalpa
如
has
过了一个界
ended,
以后
the
呢，
good
就是才
Kalpa
能
has
得到这个
ended,
人生。
and all
当
the
他人得
1,000
到人
Buddhas
生的
of
时候呢，
Bhadra
也
Kalpa
不是特
have
别
entered
就是
into
有福报的人
nirvana.
啊，就是要么
When
是他
these
就
evil
特别
beings
贫穷
finally
啊、
leave
下
hell, they
贱
shall
呐，
suffer
就是
in
然后
hungry
眼耳鼻
ghost
舌身
realm
就是
for
各种
thousands
不
of
记住
kalpas.
啊、阴阳
When they
啊等等。
finally leave
所
hungry
以
ghost realm,
还
they
有
shall
一些的话
suffer
呢，就
in
是
the
被这个
animal
恶意
realm
这
for
个
thousands
这
of
个心呢，
kalpas.
就是已
When
经
they can
完全全
finally
全
be
的已经
reborn
束
as
缚着
humans,
啊，
they
就是有
will
些
be
人是
reborn into
就是虽
poverty
然是
with
其他这
physical
个什么六根都具
deformities.
足，但是
Much
心呢，就
malicious
是要么
karma
是特
will
别空
obscure
旷，
their
要么是
hearts,
被非人
causing
给束
them
缚
to
着，
fall
要么
back
是这个
into
人
the
的这
three
个心
suffering
呢，就是
realms
好像这
not
个
long after
就
their
是
escape.
先天性的有一些就是这种疾
So
病呢，就是一
different
种业力来进
deformities
行
and physical
经济的这个束缚
deformities difficulties, such as different sickness and different kinds of deformities. They will be bound by these kind of shortcomings, this kind of difficulties. So we see that there are people nowadays who don't have who are not healthy and who don't have good looking, good appearance, who are poor or who have lots of sufferings inside, who have some deformities physically. These kind of people would be and these kind of people are the kind of people suffering from such kind of karma, and sometimes it is people who suffer from lots of afflictions and sufferings inside, though they have lots of wealth, but they constantly stay in that kind of unhappy mentality, and they suffer quite greatly. And many people nowadays, they would commit suicide. Well, suicide doesn't solve any problem. Committing suicide doesn't lead you to anywhere better. In fact, it would lead you to the 500 lifetimes of committing suicide, and that's the fruition of it. But there are people who do not see any hope of living at all, and the main reason of such kind of hopelessness in their mind would be possibly slandering Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva or others who made offerings to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, and that's why they would be reborn in the three lower realms. And according to a sutra, it's called the Radiating Light Dharani Sutra, where it says that if a person has created negative deeds and then being reborn into the three lower realms, for such kind of person, it will be very difficult for them to be liberated from that three lower realms. Some masters, while quoting the same quote, they said it's from some other sutras. However, when I looked into other sutras, I did not find the exact quote. I think it is from the Radiating Light Dharani Sutra. That's where this quote comes from, this teaching comes from. The other sutra mainly talks about how the Buddha also suffered from different karmic consequences from his previous karma, such as headache or being slandered and so on. So that was the content from the other sutra. Anyhow, it states that for people who slanders the Dharma would make great negative karma without knowing it. Therefore, we should develop a sense of sacred outlook, even if it's towards other religions. If we can develop the sacred outlook to other religions, then don't mention about our teachers as well as the teachings. Those are definitely would definitely bring severe consequences. Sharwapa's teacher, who was a hunter, who was actually a butcher, and Tilopa and Naropa, we know that Tilopa was a fishman. And the great enlightened Ksitigarbha, his master was a really filthy lay practitioner. But because of their pure mind, and by relying on the great masters with their pure mind, all of them have attained great liberation. In terms of Dharma, we talk about the absolute and relative expression. But if we have respect and a sense of pure mind, a sacred outlook, then all of the dharmas would be beneficial to all sentient beings, and they would be all very supreme. Just as in hospitals, we have different medicines, and you can choose different medicines according to your own illness, and in such a way your illness can be cured. And then he continues to say, Samantavipula, the mere act of slandering or ridiculing others' offerings and homages to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattvas generates such a severe karmic retribution. Hence, sentient beings must not do anything that is even worse, such as having malicious thoughts of harming Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Therefore, we have to be very very careful with destroying the images of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. With the wrong views the wrong views and wrong actions could lead to lots of horrifying effect, such as the Buddha statue in Afghanistan has been blown up by the terrorists, and because of such kind of actions, they could not continue their activities anymore, or they could not fulfill what they wanted. And those are all the karmic retributions from their actions. Therefore, if you were to burn the images or tankas of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or destroy the images of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, let it be made of bronze or gold or rocks, or burning the Sutra of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, then these would all lead to severe consequences. In fact, not just Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, the other bodhisattvas as well, such as Avalokiteshvara and so on. Before we had faith, if we had any of those actions of harming or destroying the statues and images, it is the best to make confession as well as reconstruct whatever images that you've destroyed. Especially, it would be very meaningful if you can do that before you die. At my hometown, during the Cultural Revolution, many people did destroy the statues of the Buddha and so on. And there are people who would try to hide their Buddha statues as well as the scriptures bury them under the trees. Therefore, I would look for those large pine trees and I would dig under them. Sometimes I did find some books, and sometimes those books are all got destroyed because of the moisture. But nowadays, I have this kind of habit of digging underneath large ancient trees and trying to find some treasures that was buried back then. Anyhow, we have to protect our three gates with right mindfulness. And then Samantavipula, in the future, there may be men or women who have been ill and bedridden for a long time. Their pleas to recover or die are not answered. Some of the ill ones, some of the patients, they suffer gravely. There are people who got sick for 9 years or 10 years. They almost lost their forms, and they got so skinny because of illness. And then these patients may have nightmares about demons and deceased relatives, and such as parents or different relatives. They would be appear in their dreams, in their nightmares. They may have nightmares about traveling on dangerous paths, such as the cliffs and rivers, falling into rivers, and treacherous roads. They may have been pressed by unseen forces against their beds, or have their vital energy stolen by demons at night. Some of the demons or some of the spirits that has already deceased. Usually we would have these kind of dreams while we're sick. We would dream of the past times, such as traveling with the deceased ones and still having a good time. This is actually quite common. And they may have nightmares of being dragged away by ghosts into suffering realms. They may often cry out in their sleep and cannot find happiness. And they are in great pain, and these problems persist for years while they wither away. So after a long time of illness, all these symptoms are the results of karmic deliberations in which the judgment have not yet been rendered. There are people who would get ill for years, and they would cry at night. It definitely shows how much suffering and pain they endure. There are definitely lots of patients like that. We can probably see that from people around us. There are people who really want to die, but they can't die. They really want to be cured, but they cannot be cured. We should be prepared for this kind of karmic retribution ourselves. It may happen to us. We, of course, really hope that we can die in the position just like how the Buddha passed into parinirvana. If we were to die in such kind of pose, it would be very easy for us. And other people won't get really nervous because of our death, but not necessarily we can all die in such an auspicious way. And then it says that all these symptoms are the results of a karmic deliberation in which the judgment have not yet been rendered. It is because the Yama has not made the final judgment. That's why they are still tortured in such a way. Or sometimes it's because of their karma are still wavering. It is not set yet. According to some sutra, it says that these kind of beings, sometimes in the sutra it says that in fact the Yama should give a judgment and then they will die. And there's another way of explaining it. It is that because karma is very complex and it's unset yet, and therefore maybe because these type of people had made others suffer for a long period of time, or locked them up in prisons, or not letting them die. And for this reason, our life would also suffer. Their life during their lifetime, they would also suffer in the similar fashion. There are people nowadays who don't understand karma. They don't understand the causes and conditions. They don't know. They don't know the causes and conditions that is indeed quite intertwined and very complex. The modern medicine do not know do not know certain types of illness either. They would consider this is very rare, this is difficult, and they don't know the reasons or the causes for such illness. They use all kinds of medicines to cure that patient, but nothing works. So in this way, we should definitely consider it is because of the special karma to certain beings. We can see that such as butchers, when they slaughter the beings, they let the beings not able to live nor die for a longer period of time, and they would easily have this kind of karmic retribution. And then at that time, mortal men and women's eyes cannot see the true causes behind these sufferings. Hence, patients' families or friends should go before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas' images and loudly chant this Ksitigarbha Sutra once with sincerity. If the patients are unable to do so themselves, Usually, if you chant Ksitigarbha Sutra only once, it is not guaranteed that you recover. Especially if it's because the karmic debt or because of the four elements imbalance or because of the accumulated karma, then we should be prepared that one time is not enough. But for patients who have these kind of difficult illness, then you should gather all of the things that he enjoyed, all of his favorite materials, such as clothing and all of his jewels, all of them, all the things that he has a great attachment to, and then offer them. And then at that time, maybe the patients would get really angry and died from anger. Anyhow, if that person, if the patient has faith, of course, you can do that. If not, he could probably die from anger. But at that time, the best thing to do is to sell the properties and then sell all of the belongings of that patient. And then you can use that money to build Buddha statue and to build monasteries, to make offering to the sanghas and so on. Also, you need to speak to the patients for 3 times. They should make the offering before these patients and loudly declare for 3 times. According to Vinaya, it says that it is quite necessary to offer all the materials to the Sangha before death, or right at the time of death. For people with faith, they of course want to make such offering, and this is indeed quite necessary. To the deceased ones, you can make the offerings. You can make offerings of the objects that they had great attachment to, and or make the Buddha statues or the stupas and so on. You have to let them know, and then you should declare loudly, saying that I am giving your car, your house, your cell phone, your bank cards. Give me all of them. I'm going to make offering to the Sangha. I'm going to give it away to the Sangha. For the patients with faith, they probably would be happy about it. But for the ones who don't have faith, they would probably feel really upset, and they probably would wake up from their sick bed and say, "No, I'm still alive." Anyhow, if a person has faith, it is the best to include the patient into this whole procedure, and maybe he would be alive again, and then if he's alive, he can purchase it again, if he has the money, of course. Anyhow, we are making an offering of these items to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva on behalf of this patient. These items will be offered to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and will be used to finance the paintings of the Bodhisattva's images, printing copies of the Sutra used to help build temples, to light shrines, or be donated to monasteries. Say this declaration 3 times to the patient so that they can hear it. If these patients have slipped into unconsciousness or even passed away, then for 1 or 7 days immediately afterwards, chant the sutra loudly and earnestly. When these patients' present life end, they will be liberated from sins committed in their past lives, even including those 5 sins which will cause them to fall into avicii hell in the places to their rebirth. They will remember their deeds in their past lives. The blessings will be even greater for those virtuous men or women who provide free copies of this sutra or make Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva statues themselves. So the merit of such kind of virtuous men or women are inconceivable. They may also persuade others to provide the free copies of this sutra or make Ksitigarbha Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Sutras as statues as well, those who do so will certainly receive great benefits. So they would definitely gain great benefit. You don't have to have any doubts about it. According to the 10 chakras of Ksitigarbha Sutra, it is said that the ones who take refuge and revere Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva will abide in the state of fearlessness. Hence, Samanta Vipula, if you see people chanting the sutra or paying respect to the sutra or even having just one thought of praising the sutra, you must provide hundreds of types of assistance to these people. So this is quite important. Whenever you see others are doing the virtuous actions of revere or making all kinds of virtuous deeds to pay reverence to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, you should try many ways to help them, to assist them. You should try your best not to. You should try your best to persuade these people not to regress from their diligence. In fact, I think this is quite important to maintain a sense of enthusiasm. I don't really like the ones who are very enthusiastic at the beginning of the path. They would prostrate right away when they saw me on the road, and they would offer whatever they have, the corals and the agates and so on, and to the Sangha, and then slowly they would slander the Dharma. They would change very much on the path, and these kind of people are very untrustworthy, and it is quite horrifying. So I really encourage the Buddhists not to use all of their enthusiasm at the beginning of the beginning of the path. It is the best to let it go slowly, but in a sturdy fashion, because you should not let go of all your passion at the beginning and all of a sudden. So try to remember that you should persuade these people not to regress from their diligence, for they will attain trillions of unimaginable merits in the present and the future. This is quite important to remember. The thought of praising Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva or any of the thought of generating bodhicitta or benefiting sentient beings, make sure that we do not retrogress to have such a kind of mind. This time, by giving the teachings of Ksitigarbha Sutra, I feel quite confident in giving this teaching because I've received lots of feedback that people actually got quite touched by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's aspiration. And then it says that Samanta Vipula, in the future, there may be sentient beings who, in their dreams, see ghosts or apparitions in its various forms, crying or sobbing. So the kinds of apparitions such as beings without heads and without limbs, just like the ones in horror films. So if they are if they're crying or sobbing in great sorrow or lament, in great apprehension or fear. In fact, whenever you see these kinds of beings, these ghosts or apparitions are the manifestations of their former parents, siblings, spouses, or other relatives from their previous lives, or from their previous 10, hundreds, or thousands of lives. So sometimes when we dream of ghosts or when we dream of different variations of forms, crying and being in great sorrow in your dreams, it they're not necessarily true ghosts, but sometimes they are the beings who had connections with you in the previous lives. But maybe because they are in the three lower realms and have no merit, therefore they have to ask you to help them. They're not there to harm you, rather they're there to tell you, please help me. Therefore, whenever we have nightmares, you don't have to feel lots of fear. Sometimes it is because the ghosts really have no other ways out. Therefore, it is quite necessary to practice some virtuous deeds. When I translated this part on January the 7th, and I posted this verse onto my Weibo, the microblog. And then it says that these former loved ones have fallen into the realms of suffering and cannot leave. They also do not have places or people that they can turn to for help to rescue them from their current states. Thus, they have sought out relatives from one to many lifetimes ago, seeking assistance to deliver them to liberation. Those who have these dreams should tell these former loved ones that they will use the expedient means to assist these former loved ones to leave the realms of suffering. And you should use your divine power to motivate these beings to earnestly chant the sutra in front of the statue or painting of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. There are people nowadays who says that, well, I've chanted this for once or 7 times, I still have nightmare. But over here it says that you have to earnestly chant the sutra in their place, and after the sutra has been chanted with devotion 3 or 7 times on behalf of these ghosts or apparitions, trapped in the suffering realms will immediately receive deliverance and will never appear in these people's dreams again. In fact, if you don't have devotion or earnest mind and simply paying lip service, it probably won't have much of an effect. It is just like taking medicine. It is not that all medicines would work right away. Similarly, when we chant mantra or chanting sutras 1 or 2 times, if it doesn't work 1 or 2 times after you chant it, we should continue practicing it rather than give up completely. When I translated to this passage the other day, I had a nightmare. I felt I was bound to my bed by a ghostly force. There was one ghostly force that has a bigger form and was forcing my feet, was pressing force on my feet, and there was a little child, and he was pressing force onto my upper body, and it was very tight, and I got kind of scared. And at the first, I practiced by visualizing a wrathful form, and I was good, but they got also very good. And then I started practicing on emptiness, and then the child's force got even stronger, and then I yelled and I woke up, and then everything dispersed. Sometimes practicing wrathful form or emptiness doesn't work. It helps when I yell. Anyhow, I offered money to chant mantras and sutras for them. So maybe we should stop here today.
Sonum dei tanche zubanya tonani be jana panshi jirgana je ralong chuba chubum solen joa joa